All right, joining us now is Alamogordo Tigers head football coach AJ Cisco. Coach, how are you?
I'm good, man. Thanks for having me in. 1-0 in district.
Yeah, fantastic start to the year. I will say the way the game started, you probably were having nightmares of last year's game.
The first snap was not good.
Yeah, but team settled down, took control of the game, and I thought for the most part, you had control of the game. I was on the radio in the second half going, this lead doesn't feel particularly safe, and we kind of saw how quickly they moved the ball down and scored to make it 2 scores. Made you feel like, yeah, one more score will probably end this thing.
Yeah, once we kind of settled in after that first drive offensively, I thought we really controlled the game up front physically, and I don't think we were ever in doubt of not being able to run the ball and have success and sustain drives and put points on the board. When they scored at the end, a lot of that is because we felt so dominant. We wanted to sit back coverage-wise, make sure everything stayed in front. We didn't want to give up a home run play and let them score quickly. So we were okay with them throwing 10, 15-yard out routes, tackle them, let the clock keep running. Not okay with getting up the onside kick. But I thought Coach Haney and did a great job with that defense, getting them ready to go. I thought they played really well. And at the end of the game, when we said, hey, you can have this, they took advantage. They had to throw it and complete it. But that's what we want them to do, stay in front of us and make sure we didn't give up a home run play real fast.
And I think the secondary had a really good game. I just felt like, especially when it was man-to-man situations, your guys' defensive backs really stuck with the receivers well as the game went on. I don't know if that's the same thing you saw on the
field.
It
is, and that was the challenge, is when we got into our deep thirds or we were playing they got mabled up and playing man on the backside of a certain formation. The challenge was, can we match those 2 receivers who were really good? And you go to Damian Moreno with 2 great big picks for us. Aiden Rowe had a big game. Drake Derezzo went in there and made plays and ran them out of bounds. So I thought those guys did a great job of keeping everything really tough to complete those fade patterns they wanted to throw, funneling everything to the sideline, and you saw them catching passes that were out of bounds. And our guys are doing a great job of doing what they're taught from Coach Haney and Coach Singleton.
And certainly a lot of credit has to go to the quarterback, because Nate had just an incredible game, one of those where, you know, we know what a special kind of athlete he is and his capability of taking over a game, and he certainly took over that game.
He did,
Friday.
and when he goes out there and rushes for 346 and sets a school record from C.J. Oakley in 2006, so 19 years old, it was a special night for him. And as soon as we were done, he understood that doesn't happen without what we do up front and being physical and controlling the line of scrimmage. So huge credit goes to Diego Ortega, Jace Monroy, Jackson Wolf, Jameis Alexander, Dominic Padilla, Carter Galbraith, Kamari Patterson, Ethan Futhavong. Those guys did a great job. Now, because Best was going and hitting 15 yards. Now, what he did after the 15 yards is him being an athlete and making people miss. But he's got to run pretty much free for about 10 or 15 before he had to start doing something. And that's credit to those guys up front. And it's credit to Nate just being an athlete and kind of being different.
Are you giving him a hard time like you gave Bryson a hard time?
Absolutely, for getting hogged down. And then they explained to us that kid that ran him down, that kid ran a long ways.
Yeah.
A long ways. Because he was lined up as almost a defensive end on the backside of the formation on the snap and went forward on the snap and then had to run him down across the field. But I guess that kid runs a 48-400 for Oregon Mountain, and he's pretty good. And we showed our kids that effort. Like, this is effort. This kid, you watch these other kids have stopped. That kid is humping it to go catch him, which was a big play for him. I mean, if I was Oregon Mountain, I'd be praising that kid for that effort. It was impressive, and he's a strider.
Yeah. I mean, that's one of those things that you can build on, obviously, from their standpoint. But you know, obviously, overall, the aspect of getting the win and getting ahead of Oregon Mountain and for your playoff hopes, I don't want to say it's necessarily a sigh of relief, but you know, the next 4 games you guys can kind of settle in and see if maybe you can pull off some surprises against the Hobbs or Centennial.
And we talked about that. We had that game with Oregon Mountain circled for multiple reasons. It's the first district game, and I think you should always have a big focus on winning the first district game, being 1-0, and especially in this tough district where every week's a grind. And then to kind of rebound from how we played last year against them, when we thought we kind of controlled it and they just had turnovers. And then our kids had a really good week of focus after the week before against PV and how lethargic we were and just the kind of going through the motions aspect. And then you go to that game on Friday and you watch the energy and us flying around. We were highlighting clips of Oregon Mountain getting 10, 12 yards, but you see 7 dudes running in gold jerseys to the ball, which was awesome. And I said that's the things that we were missing against PV. So we got to carry that into next week. But it is good to be 1-0. Played really well offensively, played really well defensively. Kind of look like who we are. We're going to sit there, control the clock, run the ball, try not to turn it over. and play really good defense and run to the football. So credit to our coaches for doing that. Credit to the kids for executing the game plan at a high level. And because Oregon Mountain's not a bad football team. They got good-looking athletes. They do things well. And I was just pleased with how we handled that situation. And going into district the rest of the time, it's not necessarily we can relax. It's, hey, now our focus on we got to take on Hobbs. Like it's focus on Hobbs and let's knock off Hobbs. Be 1-0 this week and then worry about everything else going forward.
Yeah, and relax is probably the wrong term to use there. But you go into a tough road game, and unfortunately, Hobbs has been a very tough game for you guys over the last few years. You guys have probably played Centennial and Cruces better than you've played Hobbs. So it's a long road trip, and I would feel like the confidence that you guys have a chance to go out there and get a win is as high as it's probably ever been against Hobbs in the last few years.
Probably. I mean, you go back to probably the 22 team. I thought, but that might have been one of Hobbs' best teams they've had in a long time in that 22 year. I think that our confidence is going to help us, but I think physically we match up better with them than we have in the past. They're not. I mean, they're still big. They're absolutely huge, but they're not as big as they have been. They're not as, and then they've got great skill kids just like normal. But I think physically we can match up with them, and then I think our style of football to help kind of slow the game down. And that was one of the things that we ran into the last few years is when we go tempo and had success offensively, we just gave teams too many possessions, and that we never we give Hobbs 9 possessions a game, they're going to score a bunch of touchdowns. And so our philosophy this year about changing and trying to slow the game down and really focusing on maximizing our possessions and scoring and eliminating their possessions, I think that's kind of helped us and will help us this week, even if we are physically mismatched in some certain spots.
So for them offensively, more similar to Oregon Mountain in that they'll spread it out and do 4 wide receivers. And
they are Hobbs from Hobbs.
Yeah.
They're what you've seen from Hobbs. The big difference for them is they got a quarterback that can go, and his name's Junior. And in the past, they've had a quarterback that can kind of throw it, and you never really worried about him in the run game. This kid's special. He's one of the better ones we played all year. He can throw it on the run. He can get out of the pocket. They designed run schemes for him. That makes him extremely difficult to stop for us defensively just because of how talented he is. And then you go and add all the playmakers they got with the 6'3" Justice French receiver who's a special athlete and going to play on Saturdays. You go to the Beatty kid that's a slot receiver. I think he's a 3-year starter now for him in the slot. I mean, he'll play on Saturdays. And then up front, they've got great big kids, and they're well coached, and they're really good at what they do and how they teach their fundamentals and schemes. So we've got our hands full defensively. We're trying to keep everything in front of us and not give up the big plays and then rally to the football and try to create some turnovers.
And not to disrespect any of the quarterbacks you faced so far this season, is this probably the most talented one you faced up to this point?
This one will be the best one we've seen so far. And just because, and not necessarily as a thrower, but doing everything, he's pretty good. You can compare him. And just his physical nature, size-wise, he's bigger than the Deming kid, who I thought was pretty good. He's bigger than the Oregon Mountain kid. And he gets downhill. He runs a lot, and they do a lot of great schemes with him, and they're very creative and make sure they get their playmakers the ball in space.
And I would imagine, you guys have to have such confidence in what you're doing offensively at this point with the rushing yards that you're putting up, and you know that you can go to the passing game that you want, that you feel like, almost against anybody, you guys have an opportunity to do what you do well.
We can, and that's something that we've got to get better at throwing the football still and taking our shots. We took a couple shots last week that we never got up in the air, and you see Nate just take off running, and you're going, okay, that's probably going to turn out as an okay thing for us. But we got to continue that. I gave him a hard time this week because when we get into a certain formation, he was more likely to throw our pre-snap RPO screens. And I said, when we get in these other formations, there's still 2 receivers over there. You can still throw that screen, buddy. But I think offensively we are who we are. We're going to try to line up and physically pound on people and have some success and run our option schemes and let our kids and athletes and Bryce and Sarah Saris and Bess get loose and in the run game see what happens. I think we match up well with them up front. They've got 2 defensive tackles that are absolute studs, and they'll be the best 2 we played all year. In Meredith and Mackey, and they're really fit. They're huge, and then really great with their hands. Really good about getting off blocks. And then they got a bunch of athletes in the secondary. So we've got to handle those 2 up front. I think we can have some success running the football. All
right. Well, obviously you guys are looking for a better energy. I know the road trip's not as long as the one that you had to take up to Farmington, but I'm sure that's going to be a little bit of a focus going into this, is handling the road trip a little bit better.
It is, and our kids, we've talked about it, they know the expectation, and they know, and it's not that we don't travel well, it's just how we come out and play after a long road trip. So this is about a 4-hour trip for us, 3.5, depending on how well the bus handles the mountains. But our kids understand the task at hand, and we understand that we're trying to not just getting the playoffs. Like, we're trying to have a shot at winning the district championship, and it starts with beating Hobbs at Hobbs on Friday for us to have that opportunity.
How excited were the boys to get out of the black jerseys and go into the gold jerseys and kind of surprise everybody with the gold jerseys when they came out of homecoming?
They loved it, and that was something every year with the group. We have a big fundraiser, and we raise enough money. I tell them I'm going to buy them something that's unique for that group. Last year was the inflatable. The year before was the white helmets. And so this year we came up with the idea that we're going to do a gold jersey, and we want to do gold pants too, but those things just don't look right. It's way too much gold.
Yeah.
So we told them, hey, we're going to wear black for pregame, and then when we come in after pregame, we're going to take them off, and nobody will ever know. Nobody's been able to see it. They haven't been able to talk about it. So that was the first chance that anybody's got to see those gold jerseys. When we came out right before the game, we got to run through the tunnel. And it was pretty unique when we're walking down that A-alley walk. You can just hear people start chattering about the gold jerseys because they're like, wait, weren't they just in black? And so our kids loved it. Thought it looked really clean on the field. It was a good look for us. And so they've got 3 tops to choose from now. So I don't know what they're going to do for the next 2 home games, but I'm sure the golds will come back out at some point.
Yeah, I would imagine so. All right, well, we wish you all a safe trip and best of luck against Hobbs.
Appreciate it, man. Go Tigers.